Okay, all right. Who joined it? Did Alan come in?
No, it was Shauna.
Shauna. All right. Shauna is in. All right, I call this meeting to order. Roll call.
Kritik Bhakta,
Present.
Shauna Sandoval,
Here.
Georgina Ortega Angel,
Here.
and Gabriel Garcia, and Ellen Ayfield.
All right. Moving on to approval of agenda. And if there aren't any questions, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
We're just on approving the agenda.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we approve the agenda.
There's already a motion on the floor. We just need a
Oh,
second.
there is. I'll second it then.
All right, roll call.
Georgina Ortega Angel,
Yes?
Shauna Sandoval.
Yes.
Okay. Motion passes.
All right. Is there any public input today?
No, nobody submitted any public input to me.
All right. So moving on to approval of minutes. And if everyone's ready and reviewed the minutes, or if there's any discussion. If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
Motion to approve the minutes.
All right. Have a second?
Yes, I'll second it.
All right, roll call.
Shauna Sandoval,
Yes.
Georgina Ortega Angel.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes.
All right, moving on to business items. We have a presentation, Hermit's Peak Watershed Alliance, Guinness River Park revitalization, trash cans for $6,500.
I haven't really prepared a presentation, but I certainly can discuss what we'd like to do or request to the Lodgers Tax Board. We have already installed 7 trash cans and have raised funds for an additional 4. And so we've asked the Lodgers Tax to complete all the needed trash cans for the Guinness River Park, and that would be for 5 additional trash cans. And that's been on our priority list for efforts for beautification and safety and functioning of the park. So we're really excited about the possibility of getting all the trash cans installed if we're awarded this $6,500 grant from you. Is there clarification that I can provide you about this?
Yeah, was this put in as part of a prior request? I know you guys had requested money in the past for the river walk, but then some came back.
This is a new request.
Mm-hmm.
We've never requested funding for the trash cans, and yes, we have had past requests, but those projects are all completed at this point.
Okay. Okay.
But just so you know, the trash cans are designed and built by High Prairie Welding, and sometimes the city can help with installation, but we included funds, all those additional trash cans, given or imagining the city might be busy.
Okay. So for the Riverwalk in general, this could be marketed as a tourism infrastructure, right? We can advertise to people outside to come use our river walk. Would we consider it a tourism spot or not?
Absolutely, it is. And I think we've seen use of the park go up radically since we started working on it with both locals and tourists. One of the things that is, if to be colloquial about it, is a little bit of a turnoff is when people see trash on the ground and don't see any trash receptacles. I think that does change people's perception of the park. And so if we have cans throughout, I think it does increase the pride that we have in the park and the way it's perceived by visitors.
Okay. Shauna, you have your hand up? Go ahead.
Yeah, just curious, does the city maintain the emptying and the removal of the trash on the Riverwalk? You said they were too busy to probably put up the trash cans. Are they busy? Are they able to empty them regularly?
You know, Shauna, I have seen that they've done an excellent job of emptying them. Maintenance work like that, they seem to be able to keep up with, and we've been really careful at strategically placing the trash cans in areas where the city can just easily drive a truck up and dump the can. I have never seen them overflowing. And so I do think they're able to keep up with that and have done a really good job of that.
That's really good to hear. That I think you're right on the, just adding to that convenience for people walking and just keeping things in order down there. So that's good.
Yeah, I think it makes a big difference, and they're really beautiful trash cans. The city has been fairly busy as far as installing trash cans. They did get 7 of them installed for us, but that took a little while, and we'd really like to get these cans built and installed before the tourist season starts in May or June. So including the installation with a subcontractor ensures that we can get it done before summer.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead, Georgina.
The trash cans themselves, you're absolutely right about keeping it clean and making it feel very welcome. My question is, in the future, could you do some type of placard for advertisement to help you guys fund your other ventures that you're doing?
That's a good question, Georgina. On the trash cans that we have installed, what we do is we have a placard on the trash can that gives thanks to the people that donated the money for that particular trash can. And so 5 of these would have a plaque on them that say, City of Las Vegas Lodgers Tax Board provided funding for these cans. We have not done anything to solicit additional funds, and that's usually done through an annual fundraising drive that we have in the spring. It's done through Facebook and other incidental efforts. So I don't know that it's appropriate to request funds on the trash cans themselves, but your idea of putting a notice in a signage at the beginning of the park for people to donate to improve the park in general is a great idea. And we could perhaps put that on the kiosk that's at the southeast entrance of the park off of Bridge Street.
Well, I was thinking more in the way of putting up those, what are they called, the cue card, those where you can put your phone and take a picture of it, and it would take you to the link of whatever you guys are doing. And donate that way, because we're doing that with the hot springs. So we've been getting support that way without having to plaster a bunch of, posters and other stuff. It just, the cue, I think, I'm not sure what's the word of it, but it's a cue card or something like that. Yeah,
those square things.
Yes, so that might be something you can look at, because again, I don't want to see a lot of clutter there. I like the fact when I do walk that it's very natural.
Right. That's a great idea. And I bet we could put something like that at the bottom of any of the signs that we put up.
Absolutely.
Good idea. Thanks for that, Georgina.
Good deal. Janet, go ahead.
Hey, just real quick, Kruchik, I know a certain percentage of our budget can go to infrastructure. What is the percentage that we allow for infrastructure projects like this?
Yeah, we know. I guess it's the other way around. We know that we have to spend so much on actual, like, real marketing and promotion, and then the rest can be used on other things, and that would include tourism infrastructure. So, I mean, I'm not going to be exact here, but just think of it as 3.5% has to be used for tourism marketing, for pure marketing, and then let's say the other percentage and a half can be used for other as well as infrastructure.
Okay.
It's not the cleanest. There's a formula there, but that's a roundabout way of how it's broken up. Go ahead. I mean, did you have any other questions on that?
No, that makes sense. I think it's definitely, going to be a worthwhile investment in infrastructure.
Yeah, I know we have funds to spend. On our next meeting in the quarterly, we'll get an update on our finances. But I know for sure that we have the money to spend for this project because we saw it in the prior finance report. We should have a pretty good one. I mean, I've talked to the finance director, and so for our January meeting, we should have a good update on what balances we have left. But I do know, we have the monies to do the applications here. All right. Any other discussion on this item?
No, I have nothing.
All right. If no other discussion, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I make a motion that we accept the $6,500 for the infrastructure for the Hermit's Peak Watershed Alliance for the trash cans.
Right now, they're not for approval. They're just for presentation. These are for, so you guys can get ready to approve them for your regular meeting next month.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, are they not under business items?
They are under business items, but they're not for approval this time. They're for you guys to review your applications for next month. So you guys can approve them or disapprove them. So you guys have all your information now. And then when you guys do approve them, it's a quick and easy approve, disapprove table, whatever you guys decide.
Okay. Okay, so they should have been under discussion instead. Okay, yeah, I was under the impression that we would be approval, disapproval on this item. Okay.
So then, to clarify, everything that is on the agenda for business items is just for discussion, correct? Montana? Hello?
Yeah, normally if they're listed under business items or approval, disapproval, but what because we have the specific amounts to.
If I may, if you look on your agenda, it doesn't say approval or disapproval. It just says presentation, meaning it's just the presentation for those things. And then as far as I recall, Montana saying that they'll be on the next meeting for actual approval and disapproval.
Okay. So we've had that discussion. So moving on to presentation of Las Vegas Arts Council's People's Fair. 43770 and 12 cents.
Hello, this is Susie Society. Whoops, let me get this off so you can hear me well. Thank you, that switched over faster than I expected. I'm here on behalf of the Las Vegas Arts Council and our People's Fair. We have canceled People's Fair for the last 2 years, and we are hoping with all of our heart, soul, mind, and strength that we can do it again this year in 2022. Every number you see is a best guess estimate because after 2 years, we have no idea if we're going to get double the attendance or half the attendance and start all over again, building. Because that could be the way it goes. It could also be people who have been waiting to come. I certainly had plenty of phone calls and emails asking if we were going to have People's Fair again in 2021. And I had to say sadly no, because as of July 1st, we still couldn't get a permit. We had a maximum of 50 people in a park at the same time. It wasn't until July 1st that the governor changed that. And that's too late to put on. It's too late for me to put on an event for up to 3,000 people. It might not be too late for the city staff, but it was definitely too late for me because I am the staff at the Arts Council. I have a crew of volunteers, but they help on site, not in the days before, the months before. We usually start in April. We've sent out all of our invitations to all of the vendors that we've had from the year before and any crafters and vendors that we've met in the year since, the year or two since. I have a much longer list than I used to. So we are aiming at expanding our number of tables from 60 businesses to over 100. We've looked at Carnegie Park and decided that it's time to expand and that we can expand those numbers and we can hold more people in the park. We have a possibility of working with the city to increase the electrical connections to safeten them, to make them a little bit safer. I've been talking to the department that would be in charge of that about updating that equipment so that we can have more food trucks too, because usually the lines are pretty incredible. I don't know if you've all attended People's Fair in the past, but it's a combination of crafts and artists, and we also have a nonprofit category where all of the nonprofits from the community are invited to come set up tables for a much smaller fee than our vendors and share their information and try to attract people to volunteer or to participate. The Literacy Council hands out books every year, lots and lots of children's books. So there's a lot more going on than just the sales. We also try to have entertainment that goes on, and we pay for that. The entertainment that we handle throughout the entire day from 10 to 4. We have live music most of that time. The last time we had People's Fair was 2019, and we had a life-size gigantic chessboard, and we had people from the local chess club teaching kids how to play chess and move the pieces around this huge board. So we serve the community in a lot of ways, but our goal is to serve the community as a business by attracting tourists from out of town to Las Vegas, New Mexico. And that's why we come to Lodgers Tax every year to ask us to help market well beyond the 60-mile border. We have advertised in the past in Lubbock and Amarillo, and we have had digital as well as print advertising outside of the state, and we've been in the visitors guides and that kind of stuff as a date that people could depend on until this COVID thing happened. Anyway, we think it's a wonderful opportunity for our local vendors to make money. At our last event, we estimate we had close to 3,000 people, and we are very conservative as we try to count the people. We have volunteers who walk the park every 2 hours and do a count, and then we try to average that. We had somebody from a sociology department who was better at statistics than I am help us estimate how many people would have been in the park total over the course of the day. And they said, well, we have to survey people to find out how long people stay in the park. So we took the average of time people stayed, and we multiplied that or divided that into how many people we totaled over the course of a day, so that we could come up with what we think is a pretty accurate estimate. As far as the number of people with heads in beds, again, we rely on the hotels to get us that information, and we don't have a separate functioning statistical department that could do some of that research for us. So we're hoping that someday either the city or the business department at Highlands or the Lodgers Tax Committee will pay somebody to do a year's worth of those statistics. And if you'd like, I would suggest you talk to Virginia Marujo, because she had a company at one point that was willing to do that and find out how long people stayed and what they liked to do when they were here and how they found out about it, how they found out about the event. It would be very helpful information to all of the nonprofits who are not specialists in marketing. We're specialists in our mission. And our mission includes marketing to have a successful mission, but it's certainly not our primary effort. We've cannot in any way commit to the prices that we've asked for, simply because we pulled them out of the 2019 numbers and multiplied them by inflation numbers for the past 2 years, 3 years, and then added what we thought might be a potential inflation number for next year. And the truth is, those are our best numbers for right now, but every single newspaper that we've ever worked with and radio station is going to have a brand new set of numbers in January of 2022. And those are the ones that are going to apply. One of the things we asked for help with is postcards and mailing. And I wanted to make sure that you understood what we do with those. When a craftsperson from outside or from inside the Las Vegas area agrees to come, and agrees to fill out the postcards, we send them postcards, and we ask them to send them beyond the city limits, take their friends, their buyers lists, and expand our marketing to people that we may not know or never met, but people that they have sold to in the past, which gives us a pretty focused target of people to increase the number of people who come. This has worked well in the past, and we'd like to do it again this year. Now I guess I'll stand for questions unless there's something else you'd like me to explain in more detail.
Yeah, I have a question on the postcard, the postage. Are you using the what is it, the nonprofit rate at the post office, the bulk mailing?
Those postcards are mailed to the vendors, who turn around and mail them to the people on their lists that they know that would be buyers and interested in Las Vegas and in the types of crafts that we sell here. You can only use the nonprofit rate if we put them all in our post office where we have the permit.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. It's a good question.
All right, any other discussion?
Yeah, one more question. Susie, how are you getting that? Can you use that also on a digital format?
Oh, absolutely. In addition, I didn't mention it because it's not something we asked for money to support, but in addition, we send our flyer to, when we send out the acceptance emails to all of the vendors that have asked to participate in People's Fair, we send them a digital copy of the poster, and we ask them to put it on their Facebook pages and share with their friends and their customers digitally as well as postally. Is that a word? Anyway, we cover that too. We just don't ask for money for that because it's something that we can do as part of our administration.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Another good question, though.
All right. All right. And then Susie, I mean, it looks like from the breakouts, almost all ad buys except for the postage and whatnot. And then you have a few things digital. And for me, that's what I always ask for, is a balanced application of digital and print. And it looks like you've done that, and it's reaching outside of Las Vegas, which qualifies for our tourism focus. And then on the packets just ask for that assistance of it's not necessarily whether you can answer the question of heads and beds or not. If you can come up, or if you have some data, if you're doing something in the event that you can provide information on to help us gather that data, then that helps. It's not supposed to be I keep hearing it over again, but it's not supposed to be a punishing thing, or that's for someone else. It's everyone's part of that process. So if we do give it to a company, yeah, they'll of course welcome any data that the event itself can provide. We just want you to think about it a little bit and not be the center of your event. The center of your event is, of course, your art event. But if there is a way, just have it, if you're doing tickets or anything, to provide information to help us, that helps everyone. So it's not just a thing in there like, oh gosh, why do they have this in there? Those applications have those specific questions in there so we can gather information about the event, and it's supposed to help us all figure out how we're going to market the town. So I just wanted to comment on that, okay?
I understand. I can say that probably half of our vendors, even sometimes semi-local vendors like from San Miguel or more, I consider Mora County a sister county, that they spend the night here in town too. Some of them actually camp out around the park. I'm not sure they have permits for that, but they do bring their campers, and so they can be the first ones to set up in the morning. But I know that we have people from far out of town that come to Vegas just for this, because it's that popular an event for people who are doing certain kinds of shopping. We have people who come in and say, my goal is to get my Christmas shopping done by the end of August.
Right.
So we're happy to see them.
So it's any information you can provide. So that, see, there's some of it that you just already know. So in that section, you just look, we have applications for these vendors that are coming from out of town. And that's what you can put in. That little information is helpful. That like, look, just vendors alone, we might leave that out in other things. But you're right. You have this many vendors. They are coming from outside, and they're most likely staying. The event is all day. So any information like that for that section, that's what that question's intended for. So, but all right. Is there any other discussion on?
I have one more question, Susie. All the data that you receive, are you sharing it with Virginia so she can put it on her spreadsheet or whatever it is that gives us that analytical breakdown of how many hits a specific event is getting?
I don't think that we have reserved the digital data or collected it in order to pass on. It was just sort of to see what was working, and I was especially pleased when I would see people liking it from out of town. I could certainly begin tracking that this year. I understand that reports are going to be a regular part of all of our contracts from now on. I think that's a great idea. And I would be happy to make sure that we do more digitally as well.
It is very helpful when we see the overall a picture of all of the events and how many people are looking at it, because then it tells us in the future, oh, well, we only got maybe 400 hits here, but we've got 5,000 over here. So that tells us where we should be putting our emphasis on advertising.
Makes sense.
That's it. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Any other discussion on this item? All right. Thank you, Susie. We'll move on to the next presentation. And that is presentation for Las Vegas First IBA Friday's Al Fresco 2022 for $15,623, plus an additional $10,000 for musicians requested through City of Las Vegas. I'm guessing that's what that's there.
So I'm here on behalf of Las Vegas First because I am a member of Las Vegas First. I'm not on their board, but I am a member. Obviously, the Las Vegas Arts Council finds live music, especially the cultural music, the traditional music in the area, important. And so I participated to some degree. Mr. Ledger is teaching this year. He's teaching every Tuesday in Anton Chico. And they're working on their Christmas program, and he couldn't get away. So I'm here to speak for Las Vegas First and to answer questions. And Chuck is here with me, Mr. Griego, and Steve created the marketing budget for last year, and it was very successful. All of the numbers were up. We duplicated the numbers, plus an inflation percentage. And so that is basically the budget you have now is last year's marketing budget plus the percentages for inflation. And once again, it could be a home and ball game in 2022. But if we're going to start in May, we need to start advertising in March and April. So we couldn't wait to request the funds. I think all of you are familiar with Friday's Al Fresco. I know some of you were regular attendees. It was probably the happiest people were all summer in Las Vegas was when locals could get outside, and after the first month, they could even dance with their partners and sweethearts and husbands and wives and have a great time. I noticed that some of you are pretty good dancers, and so we won't name names, but I know you had a good time. I know that for sure. An important part of Friday's Al Fresco is the way that it impresses visitors. It is such a happy, positive, energetic community event that we have people who didn't even know about it, but they were staying at the plaza who came over. Just because they heard the music or because they saw a poster at the plaza. We had a pretty, I think, accurate way of, as far as statistics can be accurate, this was a pretty accurate way of measuring how many people were local and how many were from out of town. For what it's worth, because I knew I was going to have to look you in the digital eye and answer these questions, I went over the tickets for several weeks to make sure that they verified the kind of assumptions that I'd heard. And that was about 15 to 20% of the people who came were from out of town. Well, what we do is we have raffle tickets that we ask people for their name and their zip code. So the zip code will tell us exactly where they're from. And then JC's Pizza donated gift certificates for a large pizza for every single week of Friday's Al Fresco. And they donated that to Las Vegas First. And then we would pull the winners at the end of the day or at the end of the event. And so we actually only did that. We didn't do it to feed people pizza. We did that so that we could try to account for their zip codes and find out where they were coming from and give you a pretty good answer on what the percentages were. And as I reviewed the numbers and the tickets on Sunday, which was actually just 2 days ago, so it's pretty clear in my head, the numbers are closer to 25% are not local. Now, does every ticket represent a person? No, they don't need the ticket to attend. But these tickets were from people who wanted a pizza, and certainly locals are as interested in free pizza as visitors are. And so there is a decent number of people coming in. We had some really nice crowds this summer. We had up to 500 people in the park one of our Fridays Al Fresco. So if you try to figure out how many heads and beds that could be, even if only a percentage of them wanted to stay in a hotel, that's a decent number. And I've actually done the calculations and included that estimate in our request. One more thing, we have some different plans potentially for next year, Fridays Al Fresco, and that is to really reach out in the next month to all of the musicians in the community and ask them to please send us a clip of their music so that we can increase the number of local bands who have that opportunity to make a few dollars, and we can increase the variety of the music and the variety of the musicians and save some of our very well-known local musicians who are truly well-loved and bring a good crowd, but we can save them for emergencies when somebody cancels at the last possible minute. That's important because that did happen a couple of times, especially because there was still COVID running around this summer. So we're looking to have an independent group of people who care about music, who will rate each, and then we will total the votes, kind of a blind total, because we don't want them to be just any backyard band who played for their in-laws' anniversary. We want them to have some professional polish to bring, but they don't have to be as professional as the 4th of July Fiesta musicians. They just have to be good enough to enjoy for an hour and a half. So if you have any questions about that, I think I could try to answer them too. I'm not an expert on musicians. I just know what I like to hear. So, duh. Old joke, sorry.
All right. Okay. So you're finished up, Susie?
I think so.
Okay. All right. Shauna, you I had some wishes, but Shauna, go ahead. You had your hand up.
Well, yeah, I was just curious, when they were canceling all of these outdoor music things last year, what happened to the funding that was going to pay the musicians? Just curious, just what happened, what happens in those cases where they went ahead and canceled the outdoor, socially distanced event last summer. What happens in that case? Where does the money go?
Good question, Shauna. This is Chuck Grego, the event planner for the city. Those funds would remain in the coffers, so to speak. That stays in the general fund. They're not expended.
So have we? I guess that leads me to our question. So are paying for individual bands an allowable expense for lodger's tax? It's for profit for an individual band, correct? And we've marketed events, but we've always, as I've been here, haven't paid bands directly with lodger's tax.
Yeah, I don't believe that came out of lodger's tax this last year.
Right. So that was my question on this one.
Yeah.
I've always said no to it before, but I see it on here, the
Right.
request for payment by lodger's tax. So I'm not sure how it works into the marketing for things. So I think that needs to be discussed and looked at. I'm not sure if that's probably the city's paid in the past, but for lodger's tax, since it's a for-profit for that band, we've never made individual, or I can say never, but not sure if it's proper to make individual payments to a for-profit entity.
Right.
Ellen, you had a question?
Yeah, thanks, Krutik. Sorry I came late. I was in another meeting.
Yeah.
And thank you, Susie, for bringing this. I think that Fridays Al Fresco is one of the really great events in Las Vegas. I do think we could maybe consider music a little bit more broadly. For example, we have some really great mariachi groups at the schools that would be a great exposure for them. So I think the music should be as local as possible, but the marketing needs to be for our primary audiences, because it looks like most of the marketing budget here is in Las Vegas. KFUN, KNMX, these are Las Vegas audiences, which is great. We want to support local media, but the intention is to bring people from our primary markets, which I think we all understand now is Santa Fe, Albuquerque. It's the local drive market. It's going to continue to be that way next year. So I'd like to see more of the money spent in those markets.
Right. Well, and that's primarily when we utilize, like, for example, KNMX. We take advantage of the fact that there are Albuquerque stations incorporated with Sangre de Cristo Broadcasting. And when you look at their geographic range that they hit, all of northern New Mexico, southern Colorado, and the panhandle of Texas. So that more bang for our buck, so to speak. I mean, their target area is vast. So we take advantage of that.
Alan, I actually wrote a letter to the State Hospitality Commission, the one that wrote the best practices for lodgers tax boards to spend their money. I wrote them with a map that I had received from KNMX that showed how huge the area of coverage was. And I asked them for their opinion on it so that I could bring it to you. For this reason, we advertise like in the Santa Fe papers, even though you can buy a Santa Fe paper in Las Vegas, it's not excluded just because it's also here, because it's also in other places where we're trying to develop a following, fans and regulars. That really does apply, I think it should apply to at least a KNMX, if not KFUN, because it is such a huge market that it shouldn't be excluded just because it also includes Las Vegas. And I have written them twice and they have not answered either email. I sent it, also had a recommendation and agreement from the Chamber of Commerce because, you know, this is something once settled, we can all use more comfortably once we've agreed that at least KNMX is plenty big enough to justify the expense.
So on KNMX, I'm guessing they have like repeaters all the way into Colorado or so on, or the signal just either way. So the reach is all the way into Colorado.
Yes, their signal is that powerful.
Okay. And so I guess, I mean, for the packet going forward, because this discussion today, can we make sure that we list the reach just to make it easier for lodgers tax? So we realize that it's not just local. The idea wasn't to exclude local. The idea was to make sure that we hit our markets. And so if we can put in parentheses there that, hey, KNMX, that includes these markets. So we can see that we're having that reach and look where that's going. And if it is for KFUN, does KFUN have the same power or repeaters?
No.
Actually, TrueTech, just so you know, when you go to KNMX, he will separate it by each radio station and where it reaches. So they can do that. They can ask him for an itemized quote or invoice.
And then when they put it on the packet here, they could just put it under KNMX so we can see that, hey, this is going here, here, and here. And everybody's aware of it for the packet. And that solves that if that's happening for KNMX. If KFUN has the same thing, that helps us as far as whether it's hitting our target markets or not for tourism. Same thing for KBAC. Is that? I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with all the radio stations, but where is KBAC?
KBAC is one of the subsidiaries of KNMX of Sangre de Cristo. City Manager Maestas has pulled up the maps right there and shared them with us, so you can see their range.
Okay. And then Duke City. Okay. So we're having Southeastern, West Texas.
And I'd like to add one thing about radio locally is that people who are driving on I-25 actually tune into our local stations as soon as they get close enough to hear it well. And I know people who have said they stopped in places, including Las Vegas, because they heard something interesting on the radio as they were driving past on I-25. We've always seen I-25 as what should be our lifeblood for tourism. If somebody likes I-25, then by golly, they want to learn how to stop in Las Vegas, New Mexico, and find out how wonderful we are. So another advantage to having a local station that does do the commercials locally is that people who are driving through or just here for a day have tuned in and might very well be a part of our target audience.
Okay. So, I mean, which brings me to the next question. We are pretty much, other than $843 for postcards, the majority of this ask is, or sorry, $500 and also $500 for Facebook boost. The majority of this ask is all radio buys. Was there any way to, I think we've been asking several times, to kind of improve this mix, or is there not anyone using the internet, just the radio, as far as people wanting to come in and listen to music in Las Vegas?
I will give part of the answer for that. I don't think anybody from Las Vegas First focuses on marketing other than this one time, or their other event would be Across the Bridge. Mostly Las Vegas First isn't focused on marketing outside the area. We didn't even probably think about marketing Fridays al Fresco outside the area until just recently, when we realized how many people were coming from out of town. One of our huge markets is people who come back to see their family on the weekends. And because of Fridays al Fresco, they kind of get two for the price of one. I hear what you're saying. And the truth is, I did not create this budget. I would have probably boosted more and done more with it. I merely took last year's budget because it was so successful and added that inflation component and stuck with that. I can certainly make a recommendation. And for what it's worth, Las Vegas Arts Council, when we boost events from on social media, we would always include Fridays al Fresco, because what's good for Plaza is going to be good for Bridge Street, is going to be good for Grand Avenue and 7th Street and every other part of town.
So just to comment on that, all these requests are for lodger's tax. And so part of the message, and especially for Las Vegas First, is the request is for lodger's tax. And lodger's tax has a specific purpose. And so if they're not thinking about marketing Las Vegas, we're doing it wrong. If you're requesting for funding for lodger's tax, this should be our focus. So I'm hoping going forward, that's the realization that we're just not going asking for money. We're asking money so we can do this purpose. We could market and promote for an event for outside visitors to visit our town. That's the focus. So I hope from here on out, that's when the applications are done and so on. That's what we've been working towards, is trying to educate the community on how this process is done, what can be properly used, and so forth. Those rules are established. So for some of these things, this is why we go over it, so that we can have that focus. I understand that that's happened before, but I'm hoping going forward that this can be the case. Several times for this specific event, we've repeated this, I believe, about the 5th time for this, repeated over and over again about the mix, about no going out. But every year it comes back with the same thing. But we've added Facebook posts, which I'm glad that we're at least have some internet component in the 21st century. But we're asking this so that we could properly follow lodger's tax rules and have proper thing and make it even for everyone. Okay, there are other applications that we've asked the same thing of, that you guys have provided plenty of information on. For just your prior presentation on Arts Council, you have a good mix of things. The same thing applies for this event. That's what we're asking about. It's great that we can take musicians, market their event, have people come in. It's a good event, but there's things that we can work on here on the application to have a proper mix, so we can have a better event, even more people attending.
Kutik, could I, now that we're talking about the specific, how the money is how we're spending it. I am having an issue with how does PA service equipment and technician, how does that become marketing?
To me, it's not. So that
Yeah, it's not. That's
the bands were two things. For me, even the as far as
the radio production voiceovers, that is not advertisement. That's a service. Yeah, I don't understand those two. The other stuff I'm fine with, but I would like to see more digital.
Right. So the other ones are clean and they're actual ad buys. But I mean, go ahead.
Yes. So anyway, that's my only two comments.
We do digital because we stream them live on Facebook, each concert. The voiceovers are the commercials, the advertising for the event, the recording of the ads for Fridays Al Fresco.
Okay.
But then you should put that under your postcards production and printing. That should, because you're giving me two different line items, and it just doesn't seem. Maybe they're in the wrong categories. I don't know, but your postcards and production and printing are advertisement, but that looks like a service. So I'm just maybe where you put it and how you. On the
I don't think posters are on here, but not postcards. The cards that are on here for Fridays Al Fresco are cards that have the information on it that we leave in hotels and restaurants so that people who are visiting can know where to go. Those aren't postcards, they're cards for Fridays Al Fresco.
And Georgina, you're correct on the difference between services and marketing. So if you're doing radio ads, that's marketing. If you're paying for voiceovers to be created, and that's services.
So,
I'm
Mr.
sorry, did you say that voiceovers weren't part of marketing?
The creation of them is the services, but if you're paying for them to be run, that's marketing.
So, but I understood that lodgers tax would pay for a designer to create a brochure. I don't know why they wouldn't pay for an actor to do a commercial or a voiceover to do a radio ad. I'm absolutely sure that that's covered in the lodgers tax best practices, that these ads have to be created.
Mr. Bacta, if I might jump in here.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Bacta, I think that the city of Las Vegas needs to sit down with Independent Business Alliance to go over some of the things that can and cannot be used with lodgers tax monies just right off the bat. Unfortunately, KFUN wouldn't fall into that category. Some of these other questionable items would need to be discussed. We, the city, have already procured a contract with KNMX to do certain advertising for all the events of the city. So those things we don't want to double the work and use more monies for that. So I think that we need to sit down with Business Alliance. Again, you can't pay for musicians with these monies. Those are different things that we need to discuss with the Business Alliance. We'll have it clarified, cleaned up so that for your January meeting, it will look what it needs to look like for that meeting.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah, so that clears up some of those questions. So this is for discussion. Hopefully we get it cleaned up for January. Shauna, you had your hand up? Shauna? Okay. Any other discussion on this item?
No, I'm perfectly clear with what Leo Maestas clarified. I'm good with that. I had my two notes, and I needed some clarification on that. So I'm glad that it is going to be cleared, and I'm good with that.
Okay. Yeah. So I mean,
yeah, if we're copying and pasting from last year, is it $2,100 worth of PA equipment that the city is going to buy for these musicians everywhere? And does that become infrastructure of tourism? It doesn't. I basically have the same comments about all this stuff.
Yeah, Shauna. Yeah, those items, again, that's a questionable item there. If it's not for permanent use, that's questionable. So those are the things that they need to clean up in this packet is that equipment directly paying the bands. I've always had an issue as far as signage and those things that aren't permanent because they don't fall under the infrastructure. So those questions would need to be detailed out as well on how that's being posted to, mainly because if it's signage within the, right here in Las Vegas and it's not going out, then that's questionable whether it's targeting tourisms or not. Permanent infrastructure signage is different. So those three questions are in there for this packet. And then one more, it's asking for the repeat of last year because we did it last year. That discussion needs to come up because we approved a greater amount. Last year we had limited it to 5,000, but it was taken to council and it was improved to 15,000 because we wanted to push into fiestas, and it became a push to as part of a sort of because fiestas was so up and down. The hope was that this would be a big push into fiesta. So at that time it was decided that we would increase it from the 5 to the 15. Council did. So that's something that we'll have to address as well. We still have the cap that we imposed on events, not infrastructure, for the 5K. So when we address it in January, we'll have to decide whether we would want to recommend to council that we increase it to 15K and what the rationale is for that. Are we still using it as part of the continuing marketing pushing into fiestas, and that's how we're doing this, or not?
Well, you could also count it as 20 different events, but I think it would be a waste of all of our time to send you 20 applications, one for each Friday night. We get better rates if we combine them all into one. The other thing is, I hope you all know me well enough to recognize that I take integrity and accuracy really seriously. And I was under the impression that if you paid for it last year, you would pay for it again this year. And so if I was incorrect, it was certainly not an attempt to try to slip something past you or encourage you to go beyond your limits. It was merely a question of using last year as a basis for this year, not as the sole controller, but as a basis. And so I apologize if there are any errors. I'll take the blame for that too, but I think you guys know me well enough. I've been doing this for a long time, longer than some of you actually.
Yeah, I mean, the overall intent is that the board is doing its job, and that we're just not following through. And if some things slip through, I mean, we're all human, but we're all actively trying to. Hope I can speak of the board, trying to be the best board members we can and do the job that we were appointed to. And for myself, I want to be fair for everyone, and so I just want to make sure when we're doing things every year, we're just not continuously repeating things without question because they were done the year before. We need to ask how the event went, the report on that, and then again what the rationale would be to continue on if we increased. So I just wanted to bring up that we had approved for 5,000, and some of the same concerns were last year, and we had left it at that because again it was the same questions that we're addressing this year again. Not to be repetitive, but we're faced with the same thing after another year. So again, we'll have to decide whether this event gets turned into that. And you're right, it could be multiple events. So if that's something that the board would say, hey, this is multiple events, then we can make that recommendation to council. Since this is so many events together, we feel that this is a good recommendation and making good use of and proper use of lodgers tax money. That's fine, as long as we have that discussion. All right. Any other discussion on this item? Sean, I keep hearing a hands up, but was that you, Sean?
I'm sorry, I'm kind of maybe jumping ahead here, but as far as for our January action item meeting, is there still time for people to submit applications for summer events for or was this, you had to be on this meeting?
Yeah, so there was an attempt to have a lot of communication that the first deadline of October 31st was to entail everything. We were hoping that we would have a good amount of applications in that we can go through, and the intent was for everyone to start marketing early instead of marketing in May for summer events and so on. The intent was to get people to at least be 6 months ahead and do January. When we made that discussion the last time, if things went well, we wanted to attempt to add a second day for it. But my thoughts were for that point would be for events down the road. So that's also needs to be discussed on whether we're going to have a second time period for new applications to be put in. But the overall intent was to have people to start marketing early rather than right before their event.
I think given the current climate and circumstances, I think we should give people a little bit more lenience with the timeline, as far as, nobody is really confident in planning things too far in advance. And I think it would be smart to have more opportunities for people to jump in and try to do events for the summer. If not, even if it's just kind of breaking the protocol,
right?
Because it's just the way things are these days.
Yeah, and so to answer that question, it also is hard to set up dates to discuss it. All of those things take time. So just like this is taking time just to address these. So we could set another date, but then by the time people meet, it's approved by council and so on, we're well into the future. So I know it's been tough, but within this past year, I mean, we've had COVID for 2 years, but within this past year, thankfully, we haven't had any ideas of shutting things down again. So I think we could at least start that process. And I get it. I mean, it's tough to plan, but I also think that we have a lot of procrastination happening. We're not used to systems. I mean, other cities are doing this work. They didn't let them stop them. Yes, they're dealing with the same issues, but yet they're meeting deadlines. They're going forward. They're having proper professional things in place with deadlines, and that's the way it goes. If you miss it, you miss it. It shouldn't be anything new for Las Vegas, New Mexico. We need to get our town together with proper things functioning. We're trying to put those things back in motion. I know that the city and Leo are trying to put those things in place so it's normal functioning things again. That's what we need to get back to. If we keep making those exceptions and then we never get into a rhythm or any type of schedule, it's hard to plan.
May I say something?
Go ahead, Judy.
I think the reason we went with that deadline, if I'm not mistaken, was because of fiscal ending. The budget, the end of the year budget. If they planned too late in the year, it was really difficult to meet the deadline for the fiscal budget, at the end of the year. So I think that's why we were doing this, this deadline.
No, our fiscal budget isn't, so it's not the fiscal year. That's our fiscal budget. So that's
okay. I that's what my take was when we were
our
looking
budget
at a deadline,
end of the
was
year.
it to make sure that we got everybody their money in time to do their event. You know what I'm saying?
But the calendar year doesn't match up with our financial budget, so it's not that way. So we can certainly address it again, but again, I'm going to repeat, the reason that we're doing these and deadlines and so on is that we can get to some type of order. yes, we wanted to set up another date so we can do that. We're hoping that people pay attention to the advertising for that, and hopefully they have more confidence of the event, if not, and apply anyways. If the event doesn't happen, that money doesn't get used. It goes back to general fund, and I mean, not general fund, into lodger's tax, and we get to try again. If something drastic happens, we get to try again. For all of the above going forward, I think people need to be running their events and going forward, at least attempting it. So if you're making these requests, go ahead and do it. And so the line items are there just to make sure that we're making proper use of it. The dollars and cents that comes out, I understand the inflation and so on, but that's not what the city was trying to address. The city was trying to address some of the bad receipts, some of the bad invoices that we're getting at the end that were pretty bad, right? That's what they were trying. They weren't trying to address the people that are actually doing a good job, getting the right invoices. I think there's the understanding there that if you're in the area of what you put down on your application, that you're not trying to cheat anyone. But if we're not getting those invoices, or we're getting pretty just handwritten notes, those are the things that don't work, right? And so that's when we ask about those things in the application. It's just to have an idea of, okay, we know generally what's going where. Yes, we can understand that prices would change when it would actually happen. But guess what? All the people that put in their application right now, they thought about their event, they put in an application, and in fact, they could start getting a head start as soon as we approve marketing their event. That was the point. The people that have put in their things now. So that's all I'm trying to say. Of course, in our next meeting, we can address it again and have them bring in the packets, but then we need the time to discuss, just like this. And then we need to So that's the discussion I have on that.
Yeah, I think we just end up getting monopolized as a city by, beating the same old drums. And I mean, I think more than anything, there's got to be a better way to get the word out about available lodger's tax money. And exactly, I don't know how that would be. I know people approach me all the time. Oh, I want to do this for a car show, but nobody has their stuff together 9 months in advance. It's only the things that are every year that they're considering these things at this time for the summer. You know what I mean? But, and I understand everything you're saying, Krichek. It absolutely makes sense. I wish, for the sake of growth in our city, that there could be maybe some new things brought to the table, but that's,
right. I mean, it's an attempt to try. So if we can get the most of it and the people that can on it, I'm sure we can address it. But if we keep going in the same direction, then that's all we'll be addressing is last minute marketing, and I think we could do better.
Yeah, for sure. Okay.
All right. Any other discussion? Okay, if there's no other discussion on this item, then moving on, presentation of Visitor's Guide RFP by Virginia Marujo.
Okay, I'll just make this quick and short. We met with the marketing committee. The marketing committee got together. They did come up with a list of deliverables and information for the Visitor's Guide, as well as a design firm. And I was ready to put those into draft form to present to you guys. However, the city manager, I believe, has taken that over. So you guys know it is now in his hands. And so I believe from here on, he'll communicate that with you.
Okay. And so, yeah, I mean, I think what we wanted to do is because we have the efforts for the overall marketing RFP as well, whether that was going to go for RFP. So I think that was going to be discussed at the city level. And some of that was if the city's going to do a marketing RFP, then there would be good consideration to have the visitor's guide within it. And I know we've discussed that in the past. So that might go hand in hand, the visitor's guide being within that marketing RFP. And so I know that that's what's being worked on.
Yeah, I guess that's where the confusion is, because we had discussed having a design firm, considering we do a lot of the marketing in-house. And then now I guess it's back to getting a marketing firm and doing the visitor's guide and having them combined in one. So I'm guessing that all the marketing is going to go back to marketing firm, and he's going to be discussing with that you further in the future.
Okay. We'll have that discussion at the time. And I'm guessing you guys will have discussion internal. So I guess that'll be a big item for our next meeting in January to discuss at that point.
I'm not sure, but I will let you know if it happens.
Okay. All right. Any other questions on the item?
Mr. Bakta, if I may.
Yeah.
I think the discussion has been that the city needs to work more on marketing the city as a whole. And a discussion between the mayor, council, and myself is that we would option going with the RFP like you spoke about to include the visitor's guide. It's been some years now since we went out for RFP, but I don't believe it's ever been done together. There's no reason why we should have two firms working in two different directions. We should have one focus and move forward with that game plan. So that's what we're in discussion right now with putting together that RFP, and then we'll update you when we get closer to that time period.
Right, and the marketing committee had kind of went through all that and weighed everything out, and that was the idea, was to get one firm to do these things. But again, mayor and council and city managers taking over. And so I will let you guys go ahead and continue with that. And if you guys need anything from us, you can let me know, Leo.
Yes, ma'am. We'll definitely have the marketing committee at that table to discuss some of the options or ideas that they've already come together with, so we can implement those into the RFP.
All right, and of course, the lodger's tax would be happy to help in the discussion as well. So we look forward to that. Any other discussion? Shauna, you had your hand up?
Oh, I think Leo answered. So we're gonna see a presentation for RFP in January.
I don't know if it's going to be that quick to put together the RFP for that, but we'll definitely be in touch or communication with the Lodgers Tax Committee.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. Any other discussion? All right, moving on to discussion items. We have discussion items. It's public restrooms for events. Leo, did you want to chime in on what you were thinking there? You're still there, city manager? Sorry.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Let me, I wanted to kind of show you this image here. Okay, so the discussion has been throughout the years that the plaza area does not have any public access restrooms, which can everybody see this? Can you see this, Mr. Krutik?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, so this is a restroom that's sort of a glorified porta potty. It's in the Plaza of Albuquerque area. You can see there it's visible. It's structurally sound. It has a hand washing station outside of it. It has those louvers so that nobody can actually sleep inside of there. And then these are permanently plumbed into the city sewer. This is an option that we're kind of throwing around of placing them in certain areas around the park, not necessarily right on the park area, but somewhere close to the vicinity of the Plaza Park area. So we wanted to kind of start that discussion and see what everybody's thoughts were on this.
Yeah, I know in the past I think like for fiestas, we had trailers brought in, and then did the city purchase those trailers, or we have them somewhere, or we just rented them? But I know we had tried in the past because we needed them for fiestas and so on. I mean, this would be, again, work great for fiestas since everybody's searching for, at that point you have so much volume, or whenever you have events in that area. I mean, everyone knows restrooms are a problem, and then all the vendors there are overwhelmed at those times. And I'm sure, I guess it gets creative on how restrooms are dealt with at that time. So I know it's a need for whatever events we do have in the area.
Yes, sir. So obviously during our big events, there's not going to be enough restrooms for everybody, including this structure that we're looking at today. So we would have to still rent porta potties for that event, those events. We did in the past have some trailered sort of mobile bathrooms. The pieces got outdated and they were not able to replace those pieces, so they did get auctioned off. So that is also another option of looking at something like that, something that can be mobilized to different parks if we have different events. So that is another option.
Okay. Alan, go ahead.
Thank you, City Manager. I think it's a really important initiative. I would worry about capacity. So, we have had some multi porta potties before. They rarely worked because they weren't maintained well. But the time we need these are when we have large events, and that means you've got to have 4, 6, 8. One is going to help for people who are just casually walking around the park, but to have a portable trailer that you could use, down on Douglas or at the baseball field or around the plaza that was maintained, that had a lot of units, would I think give the city a lot of flexibility for events.
Yes, sir. That is definitely an option for those events. This was just the discussion was to look at a location for this type of structure is really what we're looking at. But yes, those other multiple unit trailers would be ideal for those big events that we do have. And even that event, I mean, even for like the fiestas, a trailer of its size still wouldn't keep up with the capacity of the demand. I don't know if Chuck is still on, but I think for the last few fiestas, we rented somewhere in the range of 20 to 30 porta potties, and that still can't keep up with it.
Yes, this last year we rented 30 porta potties. The number of porta potties comes out to basically 50. For every 50 people, you need one porta potty, and we rented 30 this last year.
Okay. So, does that facility, does it include being able to wash your hands?
Yes, sir. On the outside, the exterior. Let me go back to the screen share here. So as you can see, there's a hand washing station right here on the left-hand side of the building.
Okay. Yeah, and so I mean that helps in a way too. I mean, when we put out all those porta potties, yes, I mean there's not enough for everything, but the other thing is that with porta potties, you can't wash your hands, or I haven't seen it unless there's a station I missed there. So what do you think, ballpark? Have we gotten any figures on how much for each one?
I have not gone that far. No, sir. I was trying to find a rendering like this on the internet. I knew I had seen them around the plaza in Albuquerque, so I wanted to get these images and kind of start that conversation. We still haven't identified a location necessarily. We are demoing a building in close proximity to the plaza right now, which will be done in about a month and a half. And that may be an option or a location for something like this.
Yeah. I mean, considering it addresses a problem for the events that we have, I mean, at the epicenter of the events that we have there, I mean, I would see this as helping for tourism under tourism infrastructure. So I think we could help. So I think we should have further discussion on it, on what we can do. I think it's a definite need, especially when we do have our events. I mean, small, big. I mean, these basic items are needed for our events there. So maybe I hope to continue the discussion.
May I say something? This is
Yeah.
Georgina. Leo, I've seen something similar to those in Brooklyn, New York, in front of Prospect Park. They have some facilities for the public there. And then I've seen them in San Francisco, down Van Ness and some of the other major streets when I go visit my family. I never thought about taking pictures of those, just as an example to bring back to our city when we do have our big events, or when we have events. But they are maintained by the cities, and they are, they have a lot more homeless people than we do, but they have still were able to maintain them. My concern, and I would, if you look into them in Brooklyn, New York, would be the weather, the temperature. Our temperature is very similar to what New York is experiencing in the winter too. So I would be looking at, out so your pipes don't freeze or they don't burst or anything like that. If it's going to be opened, semi-opened.
Yes, ma'am. We'll be looking at all those options for an outdoor bathroom. They would definitely have to go with our climate.
Yeah, but I have seen them, and they can work in big cities. They have a lot more people, a lot more traffic, but they work, and they are maintained, as far as cleaning and keeping homeless and drug dealers out of them. They're in a location that is in the public, so you can't spend like 40 minutes in there. So they work, is what I'm just trying to tell you.
Oh, so that it pushes them out, or how does the time limit work on those? Is there I've never been in those, so I don't know.
Well, both of them, both East and West Coast, when I've been there, you've got people waiting to go to the bathroom.
Okay, just from demand. Okay.
Yeah, and like I said, the bottom is open. You can see the feet. So somebody is in there, even if they've got graffiti on them, but they're functioning and they're clean, because the city comes and somebody goes not just every once a day, but they were clean at least twice a day. I saw them maintained twice a day, and I was really surprised.
Yeah. I'm sure we'll have those questions ongoing, and I'm certainly we can have this discussion and going forward and see how lodgers tax can help with these bathrooms going forward. So we'll keep the discussion going. If we have updates, we'll put it in for the next meeting. All right. Any other questions or discussion on this item? All right. Moving on to the ice rink. For what I know, City Council has approved an ice rink, and it was not to rent; it was a permanent buy, so that the community and surrounding can have an ice rink. So I'm excited about that. Again, council is able to approve that or the spending of funds. They just need to notify us that they did, and so they did. I believe they're trying to get it going. They were trying to get it going this week, but more than likely it's supposed to be up during our holiday here. City manager, do you have any other information on that or how that's going?
Yes, sir. So we have procured a tent to go over this ice skating rink, synthetic ice skating rink. The tent will be deployed tomorrow in the Safeway parking lot. We'll have Jersey barriers around that area as well, so nobody can drive a car into the area where there's children and people potentially being on the ice. The items for the ice skating rink, which is the panels and the fencing, are due to arrive on either Thursday or Friday. It only takes a few hours to assemble everything, so we may be able to open up this weekend on a abbreviated schedule. If not, we're looking at starting next week, and it's due to be out in the public for at least till February 17th. That's the day that the tent is leased through. So we'll see how it goes on this first run. Again, we did purchase the synthetic rink, so we can use it at any time. We can open it up in a rec center if we need to, if we're still having inclement weather. It is made to be out in the elements, so it can sustain snow, rain, any of those elements. So it can be used year round. So just please stay tuned, and you'll see it kind of come together in the next week or so.
What about wind?
So the rink is, flat on the ground. It has some fencing that goes around it. The tent is not something that we purchased. The tent is the responsibility of the tent owners, but it is made to sustain any kind of snow load or wind load for this 2-month period.
And does the skates themselves, is there somebody there where they can rent the skates?
Yes,
like
ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So I apologize. So with the purchase of the rink, there was a purchase of, I believe, 75 skates that came with that. It comes with the sharpener. There will be a small fee to a rental fee of the skates and the time that you're out on the ice. We're looking at probably $10, and we haven't set a time period. Maybe an hour and a half. We haven't really set that up yet. And as we get closer, we'll send out a message. Again, with that, we'll be marketing to some of our surrounding cities: Santa Fe, Albuquerque, Taos, Southern Colorado, Western Texas, to try to entice some people to come and visit Las Vegas for the holidays and into the new year. Again, we got 75 skates. There will be somebody there manning the tent during business hours. Again, we'll put out that time period. The tent does have walls, so in the overnight hours, it will be semi-secure. Police will be in the area to patrol, so hoping that nobody will vandalize anything while it's deployed out in the Safeway parking lot.
All right. Yeah, I'm. Go ahead, George.
Excuse me, can I have one more? I have one more question.
Yeah.
Leo, what about the somebody to give instructions on how to skate? Will there be people there to assist, like instructions on that?
Not necessarily, ma'am. There will be a waiver that people have to sign before you get on the ice for relieve any kind of liability. But we can identify some people in the public that are seasoned skaters. If there is anybody out there, would be welcome to start that conversation with those folks.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
Shauna, go ahead.
My father-in-law wants to know if there's going to be restrooms at the ice skating rink.
We can look at putting some porta potties out there. Yes, ma'am. I don't think it's going to be ideal weather to be in a porta potty, but during the winter months, but we will have it there for in case of emergency.
My question, I love it. I go to the one in Prospect Park in New York when I'm visiting family there. So it really is an outdoor event, and it's a real family thing, but you do have to have people who are knowledgeable on, skating, just the bare minimum.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, look, I'm really excited about it. I mean, the prospects for the events that we can have, and especially during the winter, during these periods, to have the idea of a winter festival, winter fiesta set around this ice rink. I think it's an exciting opportunity. I think we can make it grow. I think that when everyone in the area or within their area hears about it and we're able to market it well, that we can turn it into something great. So I'm glad that we're able to add something to the community and also help us create an event and bring people in and see what we have. So I'm really excited about it. I hope to hear about it some more or see how it goes and see what we can do with it in the future. All right. Any other questions or discussion on this item?
No, but hooray, that's fun.
All right. It looks like that's all that we had for discussion there. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I make a motion that we adjourn the meeting.
Second?
All right, roll call.
Alan Ayfield,
Yes?
Georgina Ortega Angel,
Yes?
Shauna Sandoval.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes, meeting adjourned.
All right, we'll see everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.